job. Make sure it blinks green. I tend to talk with my hands a little bit, if you haven't noticed. It's Italian, I can't help it. It's genetic. And every once in a while I'll hit it and shut it off. And then you'll all get mad at me because there's no recording for class. So, the first chapter is going to help us learn the language of anatomy in our chapters. The human body and orientation. So basically it defines some simple terms to get us started. Like, what's anatomy? Yeah, it's the structural study. The parts, I say. And what's physiology? How they work. So that's our first definitions. So that's what this class is all about. Learning the structures of the human body and how they work. We're going to talk, I know it's a dirty word, but we're going to talk a lot about something called metabolism. And that's basically what? Not necessarily. That's one of the reactions of metabolism. That's one of the reactions of metabolism. Give me a word, one word, that could be used in place of metabolism. It's a dirty word. There's your hint. Chemistry. Yes, it's your body's chemistry. So all of your answers were right because different chemical reactions will result in producing energy or result in producing movement or result in making an enzyme that I need. So when I talk about metabolism, it's I know, chemistry. So the physiology of how things work have a chemical basis to them. So I know, again, scary as it may be, we are going to talk chemistry in this class. As I speak to you, you'll notice I have my book open because I try to go in the order in which the book is presented. That's what the outlines are as well. They're going to be the order in which the book is written. So I will always try to stay on topic in this order somewhat. Sometimes I stray a little bit, but I try to stay in the order that the book is written. So what are some of the topics of anatomy? Well, we're going to look at systems, systemic anatomy. Give me an example of a system in the human body. The nervous system, what's that doing for me? Feelings. What did you say? Senses. All you are right. It's sort of control mechanisms for your body. It's how your body interacts with the environment and how that causes us to react in different ways to maintain certain standards in our body. We're going to use the word homeostasis a lot in this course. What's homeostasis mean? Yeah, staying the same, balanced. We have certain standards for certain things in our body. For example, I'm sitting here right now in this class, and there's some functions going on that I don't really have to think about, hopefully. What are you doing sitting here just hanging out? Your heart's beating, you're breathing. Let's throw those two in there. We have certain things that we have to maintain in our body with respect to the breathing. I need a certain concentration of oxygen flowing around in my circulatory system. The reason I need to maintain that standard is to assure that the blood that's carrying the oxygen is going to be able to deliver ample oxygen to all of the cells that need oxygen for reactions of metabolism. What happens when the oxygen levels start to go down in my blood? I'll give you an example. Bookstore. They have donuts, right? Yeah. Every once in a while, we have a culinary arts department. Yeah, they have donuts from the Italian bakery. Yeah, and it's right there. Well, every once in a while, the culinary arts group sells their projects in there. Has anybody ever bought some goodies from the oh, they're so good. Well, in the past, one of my favorite cookies is Hermit's. Does anybody know what a Hermit is? So good. They make a good hermit in the culinary arts department. So when I hear there's hermits for sale in the culinary art in the bookstore, what do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to run to the bookstore, make sure I get my hermit. What happens to oxygen levels in my body? They're going to decrease. Why? I'm using my muscles that are moving more to drive me to the bookstore are using up more oxygen than what my set point is. Who knows that's happening? Which part of my body? The nervous system. So there's monitors there that their job in the nervous system is monitoring oxygen levels. Oxygen levels start to go down. They're like, panic! Must do something different. What do I have to do different? Increase my intake of what? How? Breathe faster. Now I have to deliver it at a faster rate. Who else is going to help me do that? Heart. Circulatory system. How do they know this? Who tells them? The nervous system told them. So we're going to increase breathing rate. We're going to increase cardiovascular system movement, heart rate, because in reaction to decrease of oxygen in the circulatory system. So this is how the systems work together. And we're going to do a lot of talking about that in this class when we hit these different systems, how they relate to each other and how they work off of each other to maintain what? Homeostasis. So that's systemic anatomy. We're also going to talk about different regions of the body, regional anatomy, gross anatomy. Not ew, disgusting. What's gross anatomy? The big stuff that I can do what? I can see with the naked eye. That's not the only thing we're going to talk about in this class. We're also going to look at what? Microscopic anatomy. So a lot of what you're going to do in lab is going to look at histology. Look at the cells that make up these different components that we're going to discuss in this class. So what you see in your textbook is some of the different levels of organization. We're going to start in the textbook, they're written in order. Very smart of them to do that. We're going to start at the smallest building blocks of you, and then we're going to work our way up. So if you look on page number 4 in your textbook, figure 1.1, we're going to look at the different levels of organization. So the first chapter after this chapter 1 is going to be what? That dirty C word. Chemistry. We're going to talk about what? What's the smallest building block of you? Atoms and molecules. So that's what we're going to discuss in the chemistry chapter. Again, chemistry for anatomy and physiology is going to be very basic chemistry. We're not going to get crazy about balancing equations and doing all that crazy chemistry stuff. We're just going to have a basic understanding of the smallest building block of you. Atoms, molecules. What's next? Now those atoms and molecules are going to come together to make cells. If I take 2 sentences, there's going to be 2 different answers for them, and I'm only going to change one word. What is the smallest building block of the human body? Atoms. Now watch, I'm going to change one word. What is the smallest living building block of the human body? The answer changes. Cells. Cells are made up of atoms and molecules, but we define them as living because they can actually carry on different functions, carry on reactions of metabolism. So the next biggest thing we're going to discuss is the chapter on cells. So we're going to talk about your cells, how you have many different cells, and the different functions of those cells. Again, all of them are going to function to do what? Yeah, maintain homeostasis, have you function as an organism. So all those cells are going to come together and make the next level of organization, which is what? Nope, tissues. So in chapter 4, we're going to talk tissues. We're going to talk about different types of tissues and different functions based on the different types of cells. For example, if I tell you the heart, which is the next level of organization, which is a what? Organ. What kind of tissues is the heart made of? Some of it's muscle, some of it's connective, some of it's epithelial. All in different places, performing different functions for you as an organism. So an organ is made up of several different types of tissues. So we're going to talk about tissues and how each of those different tissues have different components and what their jobs are in the level of organization. So now we talked about the cardiovascular system when we were discussing my delicious hermits in the bookstore. By the way, I would appreciate a heads up if you do see the hermits in the bookstore, because sometimes I miss them.
You haven't defined hermit yet.
It's a cookie. It's a cookie.
What is
Spice cookie with raisins?
Yeah, spice cookie with raisins, flat. Yes. Epithelial is a type of tissue we're going to discuss. And we're going to talk about all the different components of it. But it usually covers things or lines things. And those cells are typically places where exchange is going to take place. Depending on the type of tissue, epithelial tissue, it might be a protection place. So we might have a whole bunch of cells stacked on top of each other. We call them stratified epithelial. Or we might have just a single layer, simple epithelial. So when we discuss tissues, we'll talk about all the different kinds and what their job and function is for the body. So the cardiovascular system, back to my hermit discussion, is made up of several different what? Several different organs. We call this a system. So when we talk about the cardiovascular system, we're talking about a couple of different things. We're talking about the heart, we're talking about veins, we're talking about arteries, we're talking about capillaries. Yes? So we're going to work our way up in the organizational levels. And then once we hit chapter 5, we're going to talk about all of the systems. So chapter 5, the first system is the integumentary system, which is what? Skin. What's the skin for? What's it doing for me? Yeah, there's a whole bunch of nasty stuff out there in that outside world that I don't want to get into my human body, right? So the integumentary system is going to help protect me from the outside environment and hold on to very important things that I need for my reactions of metabolism so that I don't die. Yes? It would be bad if my intestines were dragging on the floor behind me. You know, somebody might step on them, and they probably would come in contact with some nasty stuff out there, right? So we'll talk about that system and all of the other systems and what they do for the human body as we go to the next chapters. So know the organizational levels in which we're going to discuss. A couple of important things to maintain human life. Necessary life functions. Integumentary system, since we happen to be on the topic, is going to help us maintain boundaries. We are a separate organism. We have to maintain boundaries for us and the environment. So it's important for us as humans to maintain boundaries as organisms. And again, the integumentary system is a good example of that. Who had lunch and breakfast today? Where'd you get it? You got it at home, then you came to school. Anybody go to the cafeteria? Pretty good. They have a nice salad. Every once in a while, the entrees are pretty good, right? You have to go and get your food as a human organism. You can't stick your feet in the ground and suck the nutrients from the dirt and use the sun to make your food, can you? No. So you as a human organism are dependent on you moving from one place to another. So we're going to talk about systems that are going to help you move from one place to another. Like what? The muscular system, the skeletal system. Okay? Not only do I have to move from one place to another as an organism, but I have to move things through me as an organism. So give me an example of movement there. Yeah, the digestive system. Basically one big tube. Starts here, ends here. And what does it do? You take large things, cheeseburger, pizza. I didn't have lunch today, so I'm a little bit hungry. Pasta. I'd love a big bowl of pasta right now. Takes the big things and makes them small. We have to move through this series of tubes to break down the food that we ingest so we can make that, what we put in our mouths, small enough so we can use it where? Think specific. Yeah, cells. Cells need certain size. Cells can't typically bring in the cheeseburger as is, right? So we have to break it apart so we can use its building blocks for reactions of metabolism. What happens to everything that we didn't use? Yeah, it comes out the other end. Yes? So that's an example of movement within the body. And when we talk about things like peristalsis and muscular contraction of these tubes, there's an example of movement within the body. Responsiveness. Some of you watched me do it, so it wasn't as effective. There's rug on the floor. I can't even make a loud noise. Holy moly. Why did you? What happened? Some of you weren't paying attention to me, and you heard the loud noise, and you reacted to it. What did you do? You have to be responsive to your environment so you can protect yourself as an organism. What did you do? You close your eyes and you flinch back maybe, or movement like, oh. You did that automatically, well, what seemed to be automatically, to protect yourself from harm. You do it, I do it all the time because I'm a klutz. I put the pan on the stove, and you know, the handle of my pans, they get pretty freaking hot. And I always seem to forget that. So you go to grab the thing, and what happens? Whoop. Before you even know what you've done it. What's that called? It's automatic. It seems automatic, but it's a reflex. So those reactions to my environment, some of these reflexes I mentioned, are going to help protect me. In this case, it's going to help protect my hand from damaging all the cells on my hand. I didn't go out today in my bikini. I don't wear a bikini, so erase that visual. I'll never wear a bikini. It's okay. Be all right. Why? Because I would scare the hell out of so many people, but it's cold out there, yes? If I didn't know or didn't have the ability to respond to my environment, I would damage my body. So I have to know when I'm getting too hot, and I have to know when I'm getting too cold so that my systems can respond, so that my nervous system can tell me I need to get more heat going, or my nervous system can tell me I need to get rid of excess heat. We're warm-blooded organisms. What the heck does that mean? Not quite. We do, that helps us be warm-blooded organisms. We have to maintain a certain core body temperature. And that has to do with the chemistry again. I know I keep saying the dirty C word. But certain reactions need to happen at a certain rate. And we're going to see when we discuss the chemistry chapter, when I increase the temperature, I increase the rate at which a reaction takes place. When I decrease the temperature, I do the opposite. I decrease the rate at which a reaction takes place. We need to maintain that certain temperature so all our reactions go along smoothly. So, we need to respond to the environment. We already talked about digestion, right? Yeah, in, out, make small, you get the point. See, we already covered the digestive system. Pretty good, huh? What's metabolism? Yeah, chemistry. So we're going to talk about different reactions of metabolism as we go through different systems. Why does my breathing rate speed up? Well, it has to do with chemistry, believe it or not. Changes in hydrogen ion concentration in solution are going to cause changes in my breathing rate. So we'll talk about things like pH. And when we talk about the respiratory system, we'll see how concentrations of oxygen and carbon dioxide can have an effect on that pH. Next thing they talk about is excretion. Okay, you got to get rid of the waste, right? Reactions of metabolism produce waste. Think of one of the waste products of the respiratory system. Carbon dioxide. All right, we got to get rid of that, right? If it builds up in our system too much, it's going to affect pH. If it affects pH, it's going to affect metabolism. Think of waste products besides carbon dioxide. We make a whole bunch of different waste products. Yeah, urea. Fecal is basically what I couldn't use in the digestive system. We've got to get rid of that. So when I eat a package of Twinkies, which I do enjoy the Twinkie, even though I don't see them around as often as they were around. Yeah, they don't do the justice that Hostess did to the Twinkie. I'm sorry. But when I buy a package of Twinkies, there's wrapping and there's cardboard, right? So I enjoy the Twinkie, but there's stuff that I need to throw away, yes? Just like when you eat any other food, there's things that your body couldn't use, couldn't make small enough to use it at a cellular level, and that's the waste. You have to get rid of that from the digestive system, or reactions of metabolism will give off waste. Somebody mentioned urea. When I break down old red blood cells and recycle some of their parts, there's waste involved there as well. So who's going to help me get rid of the waste? Yeah, the urinary system. Who else? There's two other ones I want to hear. Now, digestive is the stuff I couldn't use, and it's going to help me with waste, but I'm thinking reactions of metabolism waste. Who? Your pores and your what? What's that big I word we just mentioned? The integumentary system. So skin is going to help me get rid of waste. When you sweat, you have waste products in there. Yeah. Respiratory system. Waste. We get rid of excess water in the respiratory system too. Did you know that? If you ever want to see somebody's alive, what do? You get a mirror and you kick them. And if they don't respond to your kick, you can get a mirror and put it in front of their nose. And what happens to the mirror? Gets fogged up because of what? The water that you give. If you've ever slept in a tent, who slept in a tent? I'm from the city, so my first tent experience, it's like, what's happening? It's raining. What is that? It's gross. Exactly, thank you. Especially if your tent mate consumed garlic and all some kind of stinky stuff when, yeah. That's another story. But that's the excess water you're releasing when you breathe. So those are systems that are going to help me with excretion. We also, as humans, although some of us think we're the end-all, be-all of the species, sorry, you're not. So what's one of the things we need to do as humans in order to carry on the human species? We've got to make more. So reproduction is something we're going to discuss as well. On page 6 and 7 in your textbook, you'll see some awesome black diagrams. This is all the material we're going to cover in this class. So we're going to talk about all of these systems. They're going to have their own little chapter, and we're going to discuss the anatomy and physiology of each of them. What I want you to know from this chapter is a basic description of all of them. So if I say to you in a multiple choice question, this system is for support and movement and blood cell production, you're going to tell me it's the skeletal system. Yes? So I want you to have a basic understanding of all the different systems by name and what they do for a living. And you'll find that information on page 6 and page 7 of your textbook. We also, thank goodness, your mother probably appreciates this more than any of you, is you weren't born the size you are now. Yes? Thank goodness. Because that would have been, that would have been a tough delivery for Mom. Yeah, that would have been tough. So, we have to grow. Not only do we have to grow from infant to adulthood, but are you still growing now? Even though you're all full grown, you're constantly growing. Give me an example of what you're growing. New cells. Watch this. I just got rid of about 100 of them. Yeah, I'm constantly regenerating skin cells. Hair. My bones. My bones are growing all the time. Did you know your bones grow throughout your entire lifetime? They do to get this size, but now that you're this size, they're still growing, believe it or not. They're growing with. Why don't I have the most giant bones in the whole world? Yeah, you're constantly breaking them down and growing them. You're using the calcium that's stored in the bone matrix for reactions of metabolism. So you're constantly growing and breaking down bone. When I ate breakfast this morning, I love this example. When we talk about those lovely epithelial cells, we'll see that some epithelial cells lining the esophagus are in many, many layers, just like the skin is. When I chewed and swallowed, I probably didn't chew and swallow my food as good as I should have. Anybody else fall into that category? Yeah. I do a couple of chews and you can kind of sometimes feel it go all the way down. Yeah. Yeah. Well, we have stratified squamous epithelial cells that line your esophagus. And every time you swallow, not to gross you out or anything, but you pull some of those cells down into your stomach too. So every time you swallow your food, you swallow a little bit of yourself. Now, what would happen if I only had 1 or 2 layers of cells there? 2 swallows, I'd be done, right? So I'm constantly doing what? Constantly regenerating epithelial cells. When we talk about those guys, we'll see how important their ability to regenerate themselves is. So we're constantly growing, even though we might be full grown. What do we need to survive? Everything to build us. So nutrients. We need oxygen. Why do we need oxygen? We are very complex organisms, and you'll have a true appreciation for that once we get through this class. In order to be complex, we have to be able to undergo multiple reactions, many, numerous reactions of metabolism. In order to do that, we need lots of energy. One of the best ways to make lots of energy is with the help of what? Oxygen. So next semester, when we talk about Chapter 25, Metabolism, we're going to talk about oxygen's role in a reaction called cellular respiration. And the bottom line of that reaction is to make a molecule that we're going to use by breaking it apart and releasing energy. Anybody know what the molecule is? ATP, adenosine triphosphate. And the best way to make a lot of those fast is to use oxygen. So we, in order to be as complex as we are highly dependent on oxygen. Water. Who needs water? Everything living. As far as we know, and I'm going to say that because who knows, maybe somewhere else on some other planet, or maybe even on this planet, and we haven't discovered it yet, there's a living organism that doesn't need water. But as far as we know, so far, everything living, on this planet anyway, needs water to do that. And that's the medium in which all the chemistry we're going to talk about takes place in. So water's essential. We're warm-blooded organisms. We already talked about that. So we need to maintain a what? Yeah, that core body temperature. So normal body temperature is important. And then in order to get all these atmospheric gases into our blood, we need to set up what we call a pressure gradient. So I'm going to ask this question when we talk respiratory system later on. And I'm going to leave you with this question, and you're going to answer it when you come to class next Monday. why, physically, why do we breathe in and out? Don't tell me because we need oxygen. That's not the answer. All right? So think about it, and I'll ask you the same question when we come to class on Monday, and I've figured out the problem with the giant screen, pain in the neckness. Make sure you have a book. Make sure you have a clicker. If you have any questions at all, come and see me, and I will post this short little video online once I have produced it.
Can I skip through one?
Yes.